Let's do this.
What's good? Are you okay from last week? From the headshot podcast?
Yes, I think I made up for it today. I did not get out of bed until coming here. I slept all day, so I'm wide awake now.
Good.
Let's go. Let's go.
That podcast was pretty wild.
You got tomorrow off, right?
Yeah.
You already listened to the whole podcast?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you're up now. So
Yeah.
you were on deck last week, and this time, for those of you that have been watching, we appreciate the views. But back in the den or the briefing room again is T, right?
Bam! Oh, that was from last week. I'm sorry.
I'll show you flashback.
I'm here. Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Oh, hey, here I am. Hey.
Yeah, there.
What's up?
And Brian Romney's back, and Miklo's on the hot seat today.
Yep.
We're going to go into Brian's critical incident. For those three of us are going to be doing the podcast majority of the time. So if you want to go back and wonder what the fuck's wrong with Brian, because he looks totally healthy to me, just like some garage bum.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear details.
We'll talk about
because I go to group with Brian, so I know a little bit about it, but I don't think I've ever heard details, or maybe I've blocked details out. I don't know. So I'm excited now, but at the end of the night, I may punch you in the crotch area.
Okay.
Well, we'll see how it goes with. After last week's, we just sat outside by the fire, numb, smoking cigars.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you left. You didn't even light your cigar. You were like out there for 10 minutes. You're like, I'm out. I'm out. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, Brian, I know you. Gilbert is probably not the metropolis that most people want to believe it is, because it's still considered a township, right?
Yeah.
It's not even a town.
Yeah.
So, but the cops are like, they run around like they're, all SWAT guys and stop everybody left and right.
It hasn't even grown up to be a city yet.
Not yet.
It's still a little baby town.
I don't know. I think they like the small town feel of the name, or who knows.
Yeah. And I tried to, just so you know, I didn't know you when I worked in my department, but I tried to push as much shit south into Gilbert territory as possible, because you guys were always on the prowl like sharks and blood in the water. So let's go ahead and start. Why don't we just start with how long did you have on when the critical incident happened?
Well, I had a lot of critical incidents throughout my career, but the one that actually I started noticing a change in my behavior in my world was 2012, May of 2012.
Wait, and how long did you have on at that time?
10 years,
Okay.
I think.
So you were a seasoned officer then.
Yeah.
And that whole 10 years, was
All
it
patrol.
only patrol,
On patrol,
or
yeah.
okay? So you had been in patrol.
Yeah. So I was on patrol the whole time. So that call it came out, I think, just after briefing. It was initially the call was domestic violence, and came out just like a normal call. Well,
When you say normal call, now the city you worked in, is it a violent city? Did it come out as a hot call, or was it a
No,
dispatch as just a family
normal
fight?
Domestic violence call where people aren't getting along, just
Yeah, the usual.
the normal call.
Yeah.
And I wasn't dispatched to it, but that call quickly turned into an active shooter. And what happened was one of the people inside the house had barricaded themselves and was saying that her mother's boyfriend was shooting everyone. And so I was a few miles from the scene, so I knew I could get there quickly. And this guy who was the shooter, I had dealt with him before, so I knew who he was. He was a white supremacist type guy, and he worked a border group down in southern Arizona that I guess assisted border patrol, or I'm not sure.
They thought they assisted border patrol.
Yeah.
They didn't really help them.
Yeah. And the dealing I had with him, he came into the PD. He was all camoed out, head to toe in camouflage, and he had a holster on his hip, and he left his gun either in his car or in a locker. I'm not sure which one, but he was a really odd guy.
He's supposed to be a good guy? Is that what you're saying at the border? Like I don't understand.
They were the ones that formed the militia down south on the southern border to try to help catch the illegal immigrants that were coming
Yeah.
over.
Oh, so he's supposed to be a good guy.
Right. So
Okay.
he'd be armed and down assisting Border Patrol. If they found someone, they'd hold them and radio Border Patrol. It was just a bunch of guys that would,
Took it upon themselves.
yeah, they were just
Okay.
wild and crazy and just happened to say they're supporting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this dude's a real wild card. And the scenario he presented to me when I first dealt with him was that he met a guy at, I don't know, an auto parts store or something. He was made an acquaintance. And this guy petitioned him. It's like, hey, man, I know you run a border group. If you find drugs or guns or anything on the border like that, I'd be willing to buy them from you. And so he came into the police department. He wanted to report that. And the reason he wanted to report that is because he thought he was being set up by the government, which he probably was.
Constitutionalist. He's
Yeah.
a constitutionalist.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so he came into the police department and said, "This guy's trying to buy guns and drugs from me, and it's not something I'm interested in." And so I wrote the report and I forwarded it to detectives, and detectives contacted ATF, I'm guessing, and he never heard from that guy again. So the guy who was petitioning for guns and drugs, they never heard from him again. So he's like, it must
It's
have been.
definitely
Yeah, prove my
a setup.
point.
Yeah.
This was the government messing with me. So this guy was high profile. The government knew who he was, obviously keeping tabs on him. So that was the contact I'd had with him before, and a couple other times. So I knew what kind of person he was. He's a real wild card. So back to the call, his name comes out as the shooter, and so at that point I knew that I was going to get in a shooting. I knew he was not going to be the type of guy that was going to give up. So I'm racing to the scene, 100% sure I was going to get in a shootout. And it was either I was going to get in a shootout or come home in a body bag. That was my mentality driving to that call. And so I was racing to the call as fast as I could, and my computer wasn't working for some reason. So I was getting guided in to the scene
Blind.
on channel
Like-
on channel 2.
Oh, I hated that when the computer, like, you have
Just
no.
shut
Shut down.
It's like, okay, let's just go.
Yeah,
That's why you're
Oh.
supposed to know your beat.
Yeah.
it wasn't my beat.
That's why you're supposed to know your town.
I did.
Okay.
I just didn't know how to get to that place.
That one
where there's an
place.
active shooter. So we raced in. I think it was the third one on scene, and I followed someone in. So we all pretty much got there at the same time. And as I'm driving down the street, I see his car, and it's parked out front. And so I knew he was still there. He hadn't fled the scene, and then I was sure I was getting in a shootout because I knew he was on scene.
So how quickly did it change from a domestic, well, I don't want to say routine, but domestic call to an e-call? Did it kick over to a hot channel?
Well, I
or-
wasn't paying attention to the first call, but it quickly went to a hot tone.
Well, yeah, when you have a little kid saying the boyfriend's shooting everybody,
Yeah,
that's all you need to
Right.
say.
yeah.
pretty
So
much.
that's once I heard the hot tone, and
That's
knew,
when you keyed up and paid attention.
yeah, because then you just go, that's
what you
game
do.
on,
Yeah.
So as we're pulling down the street, I see his car. I know he's there, and as we get closer, I could see bodies in the front yard. There's 2 people laying in the front yard, and so I jump out of my car, and at that time our department's policy was to keep your rifles in the trunk. So I had to get out of my car, run to the back of my car, grab my rifle, load it up. So I grabbed my rifle, and there's 2 other officers that had posted at the back of his car, which was parked in the driveway. And so I quickly ran over there to them.
Did I miss this? Is this daytime? You can see
so
everything
it's about noon or 1 maybe.
in
so
the
it's-
afternoon.
yeah.
Okay, so you can see everything.
You can see everything.
Okay.
It's bright out.
I'm visual, so I'm,
Yeah.
I got to see it.
So it's bright out. It's not cloudy. You can see everything. I can see these bodies in the front yard.
Okay.
The front door was open, and so I could see more bodies just inside the front door. And, in Arizona, when it's bright outside and someone has their door open, you can't really see into that house.
Right.
So the windows were closed inside, and the front door was open. So we were in a really bad spot tactically because he could be in there in the dark, and we're standing out front ready to pretty much take rounds. So we're sitting at the back of this car, and we waited not long, because people got there quickly. And we formed an immediate action team, and we're going to go into there and take care of business. So we get everyone at the back of the car, and we start to try and get on the radio. And you can, on calls like that, the radio is going crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody chirping, bonking you all the way.
Yeah, so even to tell people we're searching the residence, I got bonked out several times.
That's because the lieutenant needs to say, give instructions from the coffee shop down the street.
Stay off the channel.
Yeah. You stop. Don't fucks.
You can go on scene with the button. You don't have to.
Oh God.
So it was chaos. It was
Yeah.
It was chaos on the radio. We couldn't get out, and we're trying to get the channel held because we got bodies inside and outside, and we're on scene ready to go, and we can't tell them to hold the channel. So we finally get on the radio, and we say, hold the channel, we're going in the house. And we advance on the bodies that were in the thing, and as we get closer, there are large pools of blood around them. We could see a handgun laying on the ground next to one of them. And I looked at the bodies.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
And I noticed that one of the bodies was the shooter.
You recognized him?
I recognized him, yeah. So partly I was relieved that he was there, and in police work you never have all the details.
Right.
So there could be another
If there's
person.
one, there's always two, right?
Yeah. So we're still on high alert, advancing towards this dark door, and so I stand out front with the bodies as the rest of the immediate action team goes into the house to clear the house. And I'm standing over this guy, and I was angry, I was angry that I was in this situation, and I just it was hard for me to fathom all the damage I was looking at, bodies inside and out, and I still had no idea. We had someone inside who was still alive, who was on the phone with the police department. So the rest of the team went in to go find her and clear the house. So I'm standing out front with the two bodies out there. I can see the bodies inside, and the radio's still going crazy. The channel's held, and the radio's still going crazy. So that was chaotic. And the reason I stayed outside was because I didn't want anyone running into the house while we were searching it, which is exactly what happened. So quickly we had people showing up on scene trying to run into the house, and I had to tell them, don't go in that house.
You're talking about officers, right?
Officers.
Not
Okay.
witnesses or victims' family.
No one. It was officers trying to get into the house, and that's not
safe.
That's
First
not
of
safe,
all,
yeah.
dummy.
so. But everyone they hear that hot tone,
right?
and they want to be part of it. So I was keeping people out of the house so that they could finish clearing the house. And I was giving them jobs as they were running up to the house to take perimeter locations, go around the back, set up a perimeter for whatever was going on. And they end up finding the survivor in the house. And it's the daughter of the mother. So there was the boyfriend who killed everyone. He's dead. Another guy, he's dead. The mother, the daughter, and the granddaughter. So five casualties right there in the front of the doorway. So this girl, they bring her out from inside the house, and she has to step over her family.
Oh my gosh.
Did you guys cover her face?
We told her to close her eyes, yes.
Yeah.
So she was closing her eyes as we guided her through there, and she had to step over her mother, her sister, her niece.
How old was she?
Oh man.
I think she was 19 at the time.
Yes.
And And that was hard because I'm seeing this girl who's scared to death, and then she's having to deal with the grief of her whole family
Yeah.
being murdered in front of her.
Yeah.
So I take her and I pass her off to another officer who's nearby, and he takes control of her. And at this point, there's officers still showing up trying to run into that house. Even after it had been cleared and things were slowing down, there were people that wanted to help, and then there was looky-loos. You know, there's always
Yeah.
cops that
late
wanna
to dinner, trying to show up and
they
see
want
what
to
was
see
going
what
on
was
in
going
there.
on.
Say they responded to a call so they can tell their friends.
I don't know that anyone wanted to say that, but you know, everyone's always curious when there's calls like that where they just want to see the chaos. They've heard it all the way there on the radio, and then they want to see it. And so I had to keep them out of that scene. And I remember the heartbreak I felt as I watched this girl step over her whole family. And I remember the anger that I felt. I'm standing over this suspect, and I have so much anger inside me that I wanted to stomp his face in, and I wanted to empty my rifle into him. And the only reason I didn't do that is because I didn't want to lose my job. But that's where I was at. That's how angry I was, that he had caused so much damage, and I couldn't do anything about it. You know.
There was no consequences for him.
No, well, he took the easy way out. He killed
Yeah.
himself. And that was like a feeling of rage that I'd never felt before. I've never been so angry in my life that I wanted to kill a dead guy. You know, that's where I was at. And I imagined myself stomping his face in, even when he was dead. And I imagined shooting every round I had into him.
Do you think it had anything to do with the fact that you had contact with him before this? Okay, so you had contact with him before. Were you thinking at that time, I should have paid attention to something that could have, like, were you blaming yourself?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The reason I was mad is because, you know, as police officers, we want to fix everything. We get a call, we show up on scene, we fix it, and we leave. Well, this wasn't something I could fix.
No.
I think he took your control. Like, he's not going to seek any justice in it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you've ever been somewhere and you're like, that guy's never going to fucking pay for what he did. He never, nothing. He's just a blip in history. But,
Okay.
and I think that, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. He just took that from you.
Well, you dish out justice when you show up on scenes. You know, you take someone to jail. Or if they want to fight, you put a beating on them, you know. That's just what happens. And there was none of that.
Okay.
I had no control. There was no way to fix it. There was nothing. It was just pure chaos and blood and damage. And
Well, and you need to talk about some blood and damage because you're skipping over, like, didn't you?
yeah, I'll get to that.
Oh God.
So one of the victims was a 15-month-old little girl, and everyone there was shot in the face. So he shot this 15-month-old girl in the face. And once the scene was clear and we started assessing the damage, you know, is anyone still alive? Does anyone have any signs of life? And some of the officers there on the immediate action team thought that they had gotten some signs of life out of this 15-month-old. Well, they had to move her from the scene when the fire department showed up and move her to, I guess, like an area.
A safe area for fire to come in.
Right.
Staging area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when they picked her up, brain matter fell out of her head. And so I saw this little girl, brain matter fall out of her head as they were moving her. Excuse me. And that was hard. That was hard for me to see because when I saw that, I saw my baby. I still remember she had these little gold ball earrings. And she had dark black hair, just like my daughter. And I saw my daughter when that happened. And that made me even more mad, made me even more sad, because it was
Yeah.
something that hit home, you know. And so that was hard for me. That was hard for me seeing.
That would have been hard for anybody.
Yeah.
If you fucking can look at that and not feel anything, then you're fucking a mess. So
Are
I get
you
it.
just so at this point? The scene is secure, right? I'm
Yeah,
guessing. Tapes up. Are you? Do you remain there as over the bodies? What was?
So I was on scene security for several hours, and not right on the property. I mean, I went out to the tape area after that.
Yeah.
And they wanted everyone to stick around until they figured out exactly who they needed to talk to and what they wanted us to do. Because by then the commander was there, the chief was there, the detectives were all there. Pretty much the whole department had shown up
Yeah.
to this scene. And so I was on scene for a while. And the media started showing up, and it was crazy. It was crazy.
It's mass chaos.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
at that point.
Like you can't even.
And then if it's not,
I can imagine because I've been on things like that. But if
Yeah.
you're not a police officer and it ain't fucking TV, you know, it's.
No, you can
It's-
smell the blood. You can
taste it.
Ugh.
you can
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
the screams.
Yeah.
You know, all that. Yeah, I'm shaking right now. I don't.
And I think I in bigger cities that happens quite often. Was that something you already had 10 years on, right? So was that something you had seen in the past?
No.
That's not
Nothing-
something you're gonna see.
Even just a shooting to that, not to that magnitude, but just to put it in perspective, in 10 years, did your city have a grand amount of, just one person shot?
Yeah, we had the same crimes as big cities, it just not as often. But nothing like this. Nothing
Yeah.
like this had ever happened in my city.
In
I
your
mean-
town, sir.
Town.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So nothing had ever. And this was like a mass shooting. Anything over 4 people, I think, is considered a mass shooting.
Oh.
And that was before mass shootings were
Called mass shootings.
called mass shootings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't something that, and had ever even happened around the valley. And it made national news, partly because of who
Who
he
it was.
and partially just because of the body count and the casualties.
Right.
So what happens on a scene like that? After you said this was afternoon, just on experience, I'm guessing that's going to lock down the city pretty much the rest of the night. Do they tell you to stay there? Do they tell you to go cut your reports and go home, or do you get held over? What happens?
So I was on scene for several hours. Just scene security, really. And then after that, they sent me to go complete my report.
Yeah.
So I went back to the station and I wrote a report. And my report was pretty vanilla. I didn't put in all the details.
Hi,
Of what-
vanilla.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't put in all the details about things I saw, all the things I did, because
We skip over that. Like, we don't need to put the blood and guts and the.
there's no one's being prosecuted, so there's no point. So I
well, Yeah.
didn't put
Yeah.
all.
I think
someone
sometimes you
could
don't
go
want to
read my
relieve
report
it.
and they're not going to see that I saw the baby's brains fall out of her head, and
Well,
they're
no.
not going to see some of the other things that happened on scene
Right.
because it's not important.
Right.
There's no consequence to being that detailed in that report. So I went and I wrote the report, and I was struggling with what I had just seen and how chaotic it was, and everyone's just
Struggling with what? Were you having?
trying to process it. You go to scenes like that and you get shaken up, and you just, as officers, you just compartmentalize stuff and put it away. But this was way bigger than that.
What was the vibe at the station while you're there?
There was a little bit of curiosity from people who weren't there, but most of us were still in disbelief of what
What you guys had saw?
did we just see?
Yeah.
What did we just take part in? And so we did reports, and I think after that we did a CISM, the critical incident meeting.
Sism.
Oh, that sounds dirty. Don't
It
talk
is.
about it. All right, go ahead.
You
But that was-
participated in a sism.
That was not fun because everyone was there. There was dispatchers there. There were civilians. There was counselors. There was commanders.
That's not at the house. That's just at the police station, right?
This is
So
the station.
now,
Okay.
dispatchers, I get. I mean, they're part of the call, but commanders, what were they there for?
I don't know.
Just to say they were there,
I
or?
think they just wanted
can
to
get paid later for the story.
Yeah, that's right.
they wanted to be part of it, I guess. I don't. And it took so long to coordinate everyone because everyone was on scene, and they were coordinating with the FBI. They were coordinating with other agencies. There's just a lot going on. And so we finally had this meeting, and no one wanted to talk. You know, the whole point of it is to talk about your feelings and kind of debrief the whole situation. But there was things that came out during that like details that weren't in the call that made it in the notes but weren't
part of
dispatched. The call? Yeah, like the dispatcher heard the gunshots and
you didn't even know that
No.
that there truly was gunshots heard in the background. Well, that's not
uncommon.
Yeah.
They just didn't add it to the CAD.
Well, I know, but come
it's an
on.
important. It's a minor detail. What does it matter?
Jesus.
Well,
You know where you're going.
Yeah.
It matters
shooter.
a little bit.
The reason why they call it a shooter.
Yeah, so there was, and now I look at it and I'm like, who cares, but then it was crazy because I was going into a scene that really no one knew what was going on.
Well, yeah, because how many times do you get a call where they tell you one thing and really that's not really what happened? So, so the fact that the dispatcher didn't put that in there, I would be upset about that.
Well, it was in there. It just didn't get dispatched.
Right.
It was probably in the CAD notes. It just didn't get voiced.
And
so I keep hearing from you, like it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Even now, I listen to you and it's like he just took so much at that point because like you've said it 2 or 3 times, like, well, I didn't feel I needed to put that in the report because it doesn't matter. He's not going to catch it, and then, the debrief, you were like, man, why are we going to talk about it? Because it doesn't matter. Nothing's going to change. Suspect's dead. Is that something that you struggle with like to this day? Because clearly it matters because you're still fucked up from it.
Yeah. Well, some of it's hindsight, like you can't cry over spilt milk. Some things are out of your control. And if you try and control the things that are out of your control, you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I say it doesn't matter, I'm saying that's outside of my circle of control and I'm not going to worry about it. So that's one of those things that I look at now and I say, it doesn't matter, but in the moment when we're all high on adrenaline and pissed off and sad and whatever emotions we were feeling at that point, everything mattered and we were all pissed off. And none of the officers wanted to go in there and share their feelings about what they felt about the call. First of all, that's just not how the police culture is.
Right.
You don't go into a room of cops and admit that call hurt.
It left a mark there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Oh, gosh.
Especially not in front of commanders.
Yeah.
I'm good.
So that's pretty much how it went. All the officers were like, no, I'm good. Most of them passed. They didn't want to say anything. Others made comments. And it was just basically, we had the meeting, check the box, That's kind of how I
say
felt
you got the
about
help
it.
you needed so that later on they can say it was offered and you chose to not participate, even though they're sending commanders there who had no part of it to make you feel comfortable like they're there for you.
Well, I'd like to add, we had a debriefing after my incident, and even though I know I'm struggling, I don't want to be sitting there, but I need to be sitting there because they make you sit there through it. And then I actually had a reaction, and it was multiplied by 1,000 because I was ashamed. I was having a reaction, and I needed out of that room. Like, get me the fuck away from. I'm gonna start bawling, and I am sitting in front of all these cops that were on this other call that are like, one of them said, yeah, it was no big deal. And as soon as he said that, I lost my shit because for some reason it's a huge deal to me, and I needed out of that room.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't get out of that room.
Like
fast
you're the
enough.
only weirdo that has feelings or emotions.
Why?
Well, that guy probably went home and drank a fifth of vodka.
Well,
there something wrong
I
with
don't
that?
know that he.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I don't know that he. I don't know that he would even thought about it, because I think that
was he even on? Was he even there?
He was the shooter. He was
Oh.
the guy that actually shot the suspect,
So
and it was no big deal for him. Okay, so he actually shoots. So, yeah, but I didn't want to have a reaction in front of that. So,
No.
did you feel you were gonna have a reaction, or you just
No.
felt nothing? Like,
We were all in shock. Everyone was in shock.
how long after your incident was the debrief?
Same day.
Oh, hell, mine.
Yeah,
was
so
like,
it was like
later.
it
Mine
was
was-
hour. It was in the evening though, so it wasn't like
oh, mine was much later. Like,
It was
I don't even
hours.
know, but okay.
So during that SISM and that debrief, how were the officers that were on scene with you?
Quiet, obviously.
quiet. We were all
Just
in
like,
shock.
let's get out of here.
Yeah, we were in shock, and we didn't want to say anything. We weren't going to talk about what we saw, and we weren't going to talk about our feelings,
No. And the
Because-
same day, okay, it makes sense that no one's saying anything the same day. I
You
get
still
it.
don't even know what happened. I mean, you were on a scene where everyone lost their life and there's blood
Small
everywhere.
kids.
And
Yeah.
small kids involved, and what are you going to say, So most people didn't say much. A couple of people talked about how angry they were.
Oh, not you?
No.
Somebody else?
No, because my anger, I thought I had control over it. It wasn't until later on that I realized that I didn't have control over that anger, and it had control over me, and it started seeping into my home life, and then I started realizing that there was a problem, So some of my symptoms after were, it was on a loop in my head for weeks. I mean, it was playing in. I was driving to the scene. I got out of my car. I loaded my rifle. I go up, check the bodies. It was just on a loop for weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks. And I'd never been on a scene that affected me like that. So I didn't know what to do. It was just deal with it.
Well, yeah, you think to yourself, well, this is normal. It's normal because it was such a bad scene. This is normal, right?
Yeah.
Should be replaying
And they
over
don't
and over
train.
again.
Right.
They don't train you about any of that stuff. I never learned in the academy that, hey, you're going to go on a scene and it's going to stay with you. It's going to be on a loop in your head.
No.
They don't train you that.
No.
They just say, hey, you're going to probably compartmentalize some stuff. You should keep all your hobbies.
Oh, yeah. Make sure you go and exercise and walk with your family.
I think part of the
That's the training you get.
yeah. Well, I think they train us to go into hell, but they don't train us how to get out of it. They're like, hey, we're just going to train you how to fight down in the fucking, shithole of hell and deal with all the cesspool of shit, and then find your way out later. Because that's the way I feel sometimes. Like you taught me how to get, you're going to throw me into this cesspool of shit. You're going to tell me how I need to survive, but you're not going to tell me how to get out. You're going to give me a roadmap to get in, how to do my job, and how to succeed. But when I'm there and I need to get extracted out of fucking hell, you've got no plan
you
for
need
that.
help out of hell.
Yeah, I've got no plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something that I learned very on. Like I had to do this myself. I got to figure out how the fuck to get out of this hell that I'm living, because there's no roadmap out. They didn't train us for that.
No one trains. They still don't train you how to
Yeah.
do that.
And I think that's part of the problem. The culture is like, hey, you go down there and fight like a fucking cop and soldier, whatever, but you got to find your own way out there, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in this case, you were on there with a handful of officers that saw the exact same nonsense that you saw.
But I didn't know that. It wasn't till probably 4 months ago that I figured out that people saw the same thing I did.
4 months ago from today?
Yeah.
What year was your incident?
2012.
Okay.
So from 2012 to now, you didn't talk about shit then.
Well, another officer on scene. Well, that's the thing is we didn't talk about it. I mean, there was one guy in my squad who I would talk about it. I would talk about because he was saying he struggled with sleep and he was having flashbacks and he would share the feelings he was feeling. And
What'd you say?
I have the same feelings.
And that was the end of the conversation?
Well, we'd talk about it and he'd say, well, I don't know what he's trying to figure out how to get sleep. And eventually it ended up being that he got some medication, but I had the same symptoms. My way of dealing with it was talking to him about it. I didn't tell my wife about it.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to my sergeant about it. I didn't talk to any of the other guys I worked with about it. Because,
Did your wife notice a change in you at all? Looking back now, have you asked her?
No. I mean, it wasn't till probably 3 or 4 months down the road that I really started having sleeping problems, and the loop in my head was still there 3 or 4 months later.
Yeah.
And I was isolating big time. I didn't want to go to family events. I didn't want to go be around people. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to be left alone. And so I started really seeing the effects of that call probably a couple months down the road.
So not immediately. It took a little while to set in.
Well, I'm sure I had stuff immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sleeping. It was on a loop and disturbing me.
You just push through it.
Yeah, you do what you do on every call. You just
Forget. Yeah.
You
Toss it
forget
in the
it.
back.
Yeah.
And
Move on.
Or you ignore it long enough that it goes away on its own. Or you get so caught up in other calls during the week that one just disappears.
Yeah.
Because that's how cops deal with it.
Well,
Try to outrun
you
it.
think it disappears.
Well, you do
Yeah.
until it comes back.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I was at. Just
Pushing through.
going to the next call.
And then what happens?
Well, the crazy thing is when I went to work the next day, they expected us to be back to work the next day, which is fine. I got hired to do a job. I'm going to do the job. When we got there, it seemed like nothing happened. I felt like my department didn't even talk about it. They didn't even acknowledge.
So it wasn't like in the briefing notes or anything like that the next day?
It might have, but I don't think it was. I don't really remember it being in the briefing notes. And it may have, but I lived it, so I didn't really
Want to hear about it again?
Yeah, but there was no command staff in our briefing. There was no talking about it. No one came and asked us how we were doing. Nothing. It was just, hey, welcome back to work.
Go 10-8.
Have fun in your beats. Go 10-8. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I remember talking to some of my teammates, and I'm like, what's going on here? These guys are just pretending like nothing happened. And they're like, it's weird. I don't get it. And we all felt the same way. There was no acknowledgement that the call even
happened.
Yeah. So it was really weird, but we went and we did our jobs, and that's how it was, and actually the next week was the funeral for the family, and my team decided to go to the funeral.
Whose brilliant fucking idea was that?
Whoa.
Who raises their hand and says, "I have an idea. Let's go to this."
The funeral. You say the funeral, like for all of them, all
The
at
whole
one
family,
time.
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Brian, why? Why would you guys go to that?
Well, we wanted to support the survivor. She lost everything. She lost her whole family. She lost her mom, her sister, her niece. Her dad lived out of state, but she lost everything. Everything she had was gone. And so we decided as a team we were going to go and support her. So we went to the funeral.
Did you have to approve it? Did you
go in? Yeah, I was going to say, did you go in uniform?
Yeah, we were Class A's. We all showed up in Class A's and
off duty or like during
on duty.
On duty.
Yeah, so they made accommodations for us to go. And we went, and it was good to have some closure, as the responders. It was good for the community to see us there, but that's not why we went. We went because we wanted to. We wanted to support that girl who lost everything. And
well, that's good that you say that, because in my head I would think the department wants to show off, how supportive the police are but it had nothing to do with the department.
No, they didn't. It was our idea, and they accommodated us. So it was our team's idea, and we did it, and they supported us in that. The thing that I wasn't expecting is when they were doing the slideshow of the family members. I didn't see the pictures that they were showing on the screen. I saw blood on their faces. So when they showed pictures of all the victims, I saw their faces on scene. I didn't see the picture on the wall, and that messed me up.
Well, yeah.
because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to go to a funeral and mourn something and put it away and be done with it. But it had a completely different effect than I was anticipating.
Than what you were expecting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So to see, I guess, re-victimized again. I mean, I was back on scene.
Well, I think because it puts the people that you saw dead in a livable world. We don't know those victims. You know, we don't have their birthday parties, their first steps, their fucking graduations. We'd roll up on a gang shooting or something. The dude's dead, you know, and that's the only time I met him. Mm-hmm. He was dead. Yeah. I didn't know anything about his life before. So to me, he was a gang member that was dead. That's my first and only encounter with him. You know, the only time we went to a funeral in gangs was because we were trying to get intel on the fucking other gang members. Yeah. That was it. And even then, I didn't really like to pay attention to the slideshows because, you know, I saw them in a much different light. I would probably say a more honest light than what they're portraying on that slideshow. Mm-hmm. They're picking the best of the slideshows. They're picking the best of the pictures.
Best pictures. You're
seeing them, you know, you saw them at their absolute worst. That last moment. And
well, and to have them, okay, so when you go to a call like that, you have to, what I felt like I always did was, okay, that's, you know, I don't know that person. That's not a person to me. I'm not going to think about them as a person. But to go and see a fucking slideshow of them as a person, I can imagine that would have, not even seeing the blood or how bloody they were, just seeing them as people, that would have fucked with me.
Well, that's what I was hoping for. I didn't want to remember the crime scene. I wanted to remember them as they were, you know, as the people they were, and be with everyone else there celebrating their life. But that's not what happened for me at the funeral. So
a misstep there.
Okay, so did you talk to the other guys that were there at the funeral about what you saw in those pictures?
Of course not.
God
damn. Why would I do that?
Oh, Brian.
No,
okay.
But the commander did show up, and he dismissed us for the day after that, which I thought
that was going to be my question. Did you have to go fucking back to work after that?
No, which I was expecting to go back to work. I wasn't planning on that, but I think that he saw the effect it had on us, and he's like, you know what? We've already covered you. Just go. And that was a relief for me.
Yeah.
Especially after what happened there.
Yeah.
They did something right then. Huh?
Yeah. That was good. So I had the rest of the day off to just kind of relax, and so that was good.
Okay.
So months after,
then
so
what?
You're back at work.
Yeah. So we talked about they don't give you a roadmap on how to come away from a call like that. So I was just coping, dealing with it like we always do. Just go to the next call, try and forget about it, pretend like it doesn't exist.
Did your agency have like a peer support group of people? Like we had peer
they
support.
do.
Yeah, like you're going to call them.
But they didn't. Well, no, it's not about
call peer support.
No one ever came to check on you or ask or...
No, never, nothing.
Okay.
No one did anything.
It's part of the roadmap out of hell.
I think
that
a lot
they
of
failed
people,
to give you.
I think a lot of people who are, and I don't, no offense to anyone who's in the peer support department, is I think a lot of the people who are in the peer support department have it so they can have
not take calls,
have a title, or get off the street.
Yeah, not take calls, be full-time peer support.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
And
some of them want to help, I'm sure. I'll stick up for somebody.
And it's changing.
I don't know who, but
it's changing a lot since I've been involved in it.
Right.
You know, and I'd like to be more involved in it. That's why I'm involved with PISTLE, because I don't want this to happen to anyone.
Well, but I think, again, we've talked about this before when we've done our speaking engagements, is, you know, those people still have, they have a loyalty to the department. It is department run. So even though you may think that you're getting some kind of anonymity, it's still department run, and they still have their hands tied into that peer support. So
that's a lot of the reason why people don't go to
I wouldn't have said as a matter of fact, I didn't if you guys listen to my podcast, I called my partners, the guys that I trusted, that I knew were not going to go and say, hey man, he's fucked up, you know? Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not bashing peer support. It's there for a reason. I think it's just utilized in probably the most incorrect way. I think the intentions are good, but they could be a lot better.
Yes.
Because you don't feel safe.
Well, I use peer support just because I got taken off the street right away, and I used peer support, and they did their best with what they were able to do, because it's, the city's in charge technically.
Right.
The department can do all that they can do, but their hands are tied, and
because there's just fucking red tape everywhere.
yeah.
And the last thing we're going to do
tried.
is ask for help. Because when you ask for help and then you don't get it, you're like, fuck it, I ain't going to ask anybody for help.
Yeah. Because that's part of the reason that I still work for the department, is because I feel the department tried. Like, if I felt that I had been stabbed in the back by the department, there's no way I could keep working.
I think the departments, my same department didn't fuck me over. They're out of their element when it goes to city level.
Yeah.
City, state, county, town. They need to take better care of their police officers. These are the same people that are taking care of their civilians.
Right.
But in my critical incident, my assistant chief directly went straight to the city and said, we need to get this guy some help. And they told him, hey, be gone. You don't have any power here. And he didn't.
And
he has no
bullshit.
power in. And again, I don't have a lot of ill will towards my department, but that in this case, like, they still looked out for me and mine. I'm not saying they didn't, but like they did with Brian, they sent him home. And I think that's a small step that helps. But as you know, you go back to work, and what happens when you go back to work?
Yeah.
You do another fucking critical incident, right?
Yeah. So, and I don't think that the departments my department put enough emphasis on peer support or what it was. I mean, I didn't have any education on what it was or how it's supposed to help me. It's just, I know it's there. I know that I could get help, but it was never explained to me that, just like we talked about before, no one tells you how to help yourself up. They just say, figure it out.
Yeah.
There's resources, but no one talks about them. And if they do, everyone's too proud to use them.
And I don't feel the same way, because all I had was peer support. Like, I couldn't function. I couldn't do anything. So all I had, I was, these are the people for a work-related injury. These are the people that are supposed to be helping me. So I went to them and put it in their hands to try and guide me, because I needed as much help as I could. And they tried. They tried. So there's differences. I just want to talk about the differences. And you didn't have peer support. I had peer support, but
in that incident, I didn't. But I feel like later on, in a further incident further down the road, the one that took me off the streets, I feel like someone tried to help me out in that one, but I was in a place where I couldn't.
You're already too far fucked up.
I couldn't receive that help because I was so messed up.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, how long was that after that first
2 years.
Okay, so you were back on patrol for 2 years,
right?
Figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yourself, still not getting help.
Yeah. So I was communicating with that officer on my squad about how he was helping himself, because he was having the same symptoms I was, not sleeping, in the loop, and he was just trying to figure it out. So I was kind of just troubleshooting with him on things he could do and maybe I could do, and that's just how it went on for 3, 4, 5 months. Well, about 6 months, I really started noticing a change in me. I was angry. I was starting to lash out at my family. I was starting to isolate. I was starting to really just not be myself. And I noticed that. And this guy that I was talking to on my team, he had actually gone and gotten help. And the department had sent him to go see a psychologist. And so I thought, well, if he can get help, then I'll just go get help, because this is starting to really affect my home life.
So,
right?
But he tells you that, right? He tells you he went and got help?
Yeah.
Shit, that's all right.
Well, if another officer tells you they're having issues, and that it makes it a little bit easier, right?
This is something that he was on scene with me, and from the get-go, we were sharing feelings that we were having.
Got to give that officer kudos.
I had trust.
Because you trust.
Yeah, we had trust.
You trust your squad mates, man.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, fuck, I didn't know anybody saw a psychologist until my critical incident, and then everybody came out the woodworks, you know.
I would never go see a psychologist.
No.
No. Well,
No, not in a million years, because there's a stigma with that. Like,
I take motherfuckers to see a psychologist.
Yeah,
I don't go see a psychologist.
You see a psychologist, and that just means the department's going to take your gun, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
But at this point, I didn't care. I was starting, like I said, it was started to really take a toll on my home life. And so I said, I need to do something about it. And so I talked to him and I said, well, what do I need to do to get help? And so he coached me on what I need to say to my boss and that the department would send me to go see someone. And so that's what I did. I went and talked to my boss and I said, hey, this is still from that incident. I'm having issues. I'd like to go see someone. And they arranged it.
Right on.
So they sent me to this doctor.
No names.
And I
No
use
names.
that
Slander.
I use that word very, very loosely because she is not good at her job. And I went to see this doctor, and she talked to me like a little kid, and used like a baby voice. It was weird.
Yeah.
And
For transparency, Brian and I saw the same doctor, so
yeah.
You know who you are, doctor. Stupid doctor.
I do know.
Yeah. So, and she said things to me like, just don't think that way. It'll get better. Just nonsense. Exactly what I thought
Going to a psychologist would be.
Yeah, was kind of happening. And I thought, well, how am I supposed to get help with this person who's telling me not to think that way? Just don't think like that, or change your way of viewing what's happening in your life. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Because you're intentionally putting that loop in your own head. Brian, just stop.
Yeah, so
That sounds so
That's
fucking stupid.
that's exactly how she fucking sounds. Just stop it.
Just stop.
Just stop it.
yeah,
Yeah. You
Sure
tell her,
wish-
you're like,
Sure wish we could,
yeah.
bitch.
I'm like, hey, I hear screams in my head. She's like, just stop it.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
just don't think that way.
Don't think that way.
Oh, wow.
So I think I went to I went to like 3 appointments with her. And during one of the appointments, it was on duty. But the other ones I had gone on my own. And this one I went on duty. And I showed up to her office in full uniform.
Okay.
This is a psychologist who supposedly specializes in law enforcement. And as I'm sitting in her lobby, she steps out and says, excuse me, I don't allow guns in my office. So could you go please leave your gun in your car?
What a fucking dumb
This is-
bitch.
And so I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? This crazy lady who supposedly is going to help me, it's embarrassing going there anyway. Now she wants me to take my gun off and go hide it in the car.
In full uniform.
Full uniform.
In full fucking uniform.
So that,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
And there's no parking in front of her office. So I parked about
So you did it.
a block down. I needed help.
We're rule
followers,
We
T.
do what,
Not me, though, because when she asked me, you carrying a weapon? I'm like, no. Had it packed right on my hip. I didn't fuck that shit.
Yeah. So I walked about a block, disarmed, in full uniform.
Oh my gosh.
Down
How
the streets of
unsafe.
Phoenix.
How unsafe is that?
All kinds of policy
Yeah.
violations.
That
Just
is
so you know.
unsafe.
Well,
So many policy
at
violations.
this point, I didn't care. I wanted help. And
I get it, Brian. I get it, man.
So I was willing to do whatever it took
Right.
just to get the help. Even if that meant being embarrassed and putting my safety at risk so that this lady could help
I
me.
get it.
Yeah, and you weren't in your town. Now you were in a city.
I was in Phoenix.
Violent
In a
city.
scary
Yeah,
city.
it was scary.
Yeah.
And I'm by no means talking shit to you
I don't
to
care.
do it. I'm just saying how fucking stupid these people are that they get to deal with police officers that just...
If you deal with police officers and you can't handle a uniformed officer in your office, you shouldn't be helping police officers.
Well, what is she going to
No.
tell if she calls 911? Oh, sorry.
Well,
I don't allow guns in my office.
did you listen to Mark's podcast where they told him, why did you even have your gun out? And you're like, holy
Yeah.
fuck. Did that set you off?
This
when
is
you
real
listened to
life.
that?
That's
Like,
what do you mean? That this is part of what we deal with.
we are not the people you need to worry about with the guns, you dumb fucks.
This is the safest place in Phoenix. Relax.
right now because
Yeah.
well, not anymore because you don't have your
No, I
fucking
don't have a gun.
sidearm
I
with
left it in
you.
the car.
Jesus.
So after that incident, I decided that I wasn't going to go back and see her. I wasn't feeling any benefit, and I could see that she
What's
Didn't
pissing
care.
you off?
Yeah.
wasn't good at her job. And I've never been to a psychologist, so I didn't know any better. I just thought that's how it is. So I'm like, I'll deal with this on my own.
Yeah. Oh.
So I went back to work, and I just dealing with it the way cops deal with it is by not thinking about it and going to the next call and just ignoring it.
Yeah. Just suffering in silence.
Yep.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
You know? And then plus, I mean, I don't know about you, but I felt safer at work than I did home. I seemed to be spiraling worse at home, which was completely wrong. I got worse while I was at work. So you're just battling and pushing through it at work.
Yeah. So I was just dealing with it. I was having issues with, I was blacking out on duty. So I'd be driving down the road and I'd wake up on the other side of town and not know how I got there.
Yeah.
And this is happening in full uniform in a marked patrol car.
Oh, that's frightening.
And
With your gun on your hip, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
and I also was driving through intersections, and after I got through the intersection, I didn't know whether the light was green or red.
Ooh.
Like I was
not good.
dissociating so much that I couldn't even function.
You guys actually listen to your doctors because you use words like dissociating, and I get it now. Like I get it, but did you ever know what dissociating
No, I had
was
no idea what that
beforehand?
meant.
No.
So-
I had no fucking idea what that meant.
No clue.
They're the
No.
ones that use those big words, not us.
I was driving to work and
Checked
I
out. I
would
checked out.
check out and get lost. I'd wake up. Not when when you say
Your
wake up,
body
I'm
goes-
not sleeping. I'm just
Your body goes into autopilot,
Yeah.
and your brain goes somewhere else.
my
Yeah,
brain
but
was
I think
somewhere
people
else.
in general do that too. There's probably business people out there that leave work at 5:00, get home and don't know how the fuck they got home.
Yeah.
I think there's good dissociation and bad dissociation.
But if,
like
if
with
it's
my
happening a lot,
like with my doctor, she pointed that out. There's good, there's bad. Part of the issue is that we're just not getting the help we need.
Right.
Because we learn to cope in the wrong ways. It's like going to the range and picking up bad habits. You're always going to have those bad habits. You got to break them. And how do we break them? Well, we can't ask doctors because we get doctors like this, right?
Yeah.
Please don't bring your gun in here.
So I tried for 6 months to do it myself. Then I went to get help, and that didn't help. So then I was back to doing it on my own, which was who knows what.
I'm sure you were madder then because you tried to get help and this dum-dum told you that. Your anger's still...
Well, yeah, but I didn't know what to expect. I mean, so my expectation of professional help was going to an idiot who talks to you like a little kid and tells you not to think that way.
Show a little respect, Doc. Dr. Idiot.
Dr. Idiot.
Not just idiot. Dr. Idiot.
So for 2 years, I was just dealing with it. And eventually it got less intrusive.
Uh-huh.
And eventually it wasn't something I thought about, but it took over a year for that to just subside. And so, I'm just back on patrol, doing my job, working hard, chasing bad guys.
Going through lights, you don't know what color they are?
Yeah.
Dummy.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So, but you know what? I didn't know that was part of the trauma. I didn't know.
Right.
I just thought I must be tired, or
Yeah.
who knows? You as a cop, you just explain stuff like that away.
Oh, yeah.
So in 2014, I was on patrol. I was on day shift, I think. And I got a call of a bank robbery. And I was probably 2-3 miles down the road, and he left on foot. I'm like, I'm going to catch this dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm gonna catch this dude. So I'm hauling to there, and I'm not far away, and they put a tracker in his money, so we knew where he was going. And they're like, he's headed southbound on Power Road, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm gonna catch him. And then they're like, well, now he's going 40 miles an hour. We're like, okay.
He's not running
He's
now.
not running anymore. He's in a car.
Yeah.
And so for, I don't know, 30-40 minutes, we're chasing this
Dot.
signal
Yeah.
around Gilbert, Mesa, just going everywhere and anywhere. And it's not super accurate to like,
To the
Feet
second. It's
to the
not right
second.
on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we're getting delayed feedback and stuff, and we're chasing a car that we don't know what it is.
Right.
And so we end up in northeast Mesa, like I don't know, Chrisman and University or somewhere around there. And he's in this general area, and we're all swarming this parking lot looking for him. And by this time, the FBI task force is already following the call. And I just happened to be in the parking lot, and the guy carjacked a truck in the parking lot where I was at. And so me and a couple other officers, well, one of the motorcycle officers that was there, he got flagged down by the owner of the truck and was like, I just got carjacked, and that's my truck. And so this truck's pulling out of the parking lot.
Oh,
Yeah, now you got a
it's
target.
on.
Now
It's
you got
on.
a
So
target.
now we know exactly what we're chasing.
Right.
And so we're just after this dude. And it's not his truck, so he's driving like an idiot.
Right.
Well, there was probably 5 motorcycle officers there. There's my sergeant, me, and a couple other vehicles that were chasing him. And one of the, an undercover officer lit him up. Was pretty much going head on with him. Well, the guy hit him. He hit this
Rammed
unmarked. Rammed him. And so he radioed that he had just been hit and that he was okay. And so we're chasing this guy. Well, one of the tires blew out. And this dude's probably doing 60 to 80 miles an hour down the road sideways because he only has 3 tires.
Sparks.
And so he's ripping down the street, and we're giving chase, and now we know who he is. Well, our department policy is that in a pursuit, motor officers are allowed to pursue until a vehicle shows up. Once the vehicle shows up, they have to discontinue the pursuit.
For safety, for their safety.
Can't find a fucking motor anywhere in my goddamn city, but when there's a fucking hot call, those motherfuckers are everywhere to be found.
So they didn't do that. They didn't follow policy. So I am dodging motorcycles left and right.
Fucking motors.
And so I'm trying to get up so I could do a pit maneuver on him. And these motor officers are, all over the place. And I almost ran over one of them because he came to a complete stop at a red light, which is what you're supposed to do. But a Crown Vic doesn't slow down like a motorcycle. No. So
it's a lot lighter.
I almost ate his lunch. And then the sergeant got on the radio and was like, get out of my way. All you motors discontinue. Get out of the way. And so I'm like, thank you for saying that because I almost ran these guys over the road. Anyway, so long story short, this dude decides he's going to pull into an apartment complex. And as he's entering the complex, my sergeant starts a pit maneuver on him. And because of the way as he's turning, it just, the pit doesn't go exactly as planned. And so the sergeant's actually like more or less pushing his car sideways. Well, he completes the pit and I'm going in to do
front block.
Yes.
You're going to do front block.
So there's 2 cars in a pit normally.
Right.
One to the front, one to the back. Well, this was not a normal pit because my sergeant was on the passenger side pushing him, and I was trying to get around to the driver's side to pin him in because this guy's, I could see he's opening his door and he's coming out. And he's, so did I mention I almost ran over 3 officers trying to get
my heart's racing over here. Let's go get the bad guy.
So I almost ran over one in the intersection, and now I'm trying to finish the pit in a parking lot and dodging motor officers so that I can get there. So I go to finish the pit. As I'm going to hit the driver door where he's at, he jumps out. So I just missed him.
Damn.
And so here I am. I've got this bank robber just over the hood of my car. I can see we're 8 feet away from each other?
Yeah.
The distance of my hood. And he is just wild-eyed, full of adrenaline, ready to run.
That's what he said about you, actually.
Who?
That's what he said about... I'm just fucking with you, man. You were wild-eyed and adrenaline. Okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
From your end.
Sorry.
It was awesome. It's cat and mouse. You're just, you're in it. And so he's right there. So I'm like, I'm going to catch him. And so I see this wild-eyed dude run around the back of his car. Well, the way I'd hit him, I had to run around his car and then run around my sergeant's car. And as I'm clearing my sergeant's car, I hear several officers yell gun. Excuse me. And that's when I see this guy get gunned down. So I wasn't in a position to shoot because of where I was at. It was too much crossfire, but I was only probably 15 feet away from the shooting. And it was crazy because this guy fell face first into the rocks, and we all have our guns out and we're giving him commands and trying to finish what we had gotten there for. And I'd never experienced tunnel vision before, but I experienced it in that moment because as we're giving him commands, he's not responding. So I put my gun away and I went in to handcuff him. And as I handcuffed him, all I could see was his hands. That's all I could see. And
Really?
I had such tunnel vision that I could see his hands, and that was it. And I saw some other hands come in and hand his other hand to me. And it was like I'd never experienced tunnel vision before, and that was it. So, long story short, he ended up dying, and the gun was not far from his body. But I was on scene for a long time. Now this went down in the middle of an apartment complex, so all the residents in the apartment complex heard the shot.
Of course they did. And of course, what they do, they come out.
They come out.
Yeah.
So here we have this bad guy handcuffed who's clearly dead. And we had to start rendering aid because
That's what we
that's
do.
what we do. And so there was an officer who was already doing it, and I took over for him. And so I was doing compressions, and he was clearly dead. And there was no bringing him back. So I was just doing compressions, but I was doing compressions for what seemed like 20 minutes because the situation we found ourselves in is we were in a different city, in a county island of that city.
Oh.
So we're in Mesa, in a county island for Maricopa County. So trying to get the fire department to show up was a nightmare.
Oh. I
Yeah,
see
that's
the
not
problem.
ours.
Yeah.
That's counties.
Because you call someone, they're like, well, that's county. Well, no, it's not. It's Mesa. No, it's county.
Yeah.
Well, who do we send? And so it was a nightmare. So it seemed like I was doing CPR on this guy for 15, 20 minutes. And whether that's true, I don't know. But it was a really long time because fire didn't show up. And so here I am looking at this guy who seconds earlier I had seen full of life, full of adrenaline, running for his life. And now here I was looking into his dead eyes, and I saw the full spectrum of this man's life right before my eyes.
Yeah.
And that kind of messed with me, not at the moment, but it was after when that started to mess with me because I had seen this man at his highest high and his lowest low. And that incident really didn't bother me because, as cops, you train for
Catch
shooting.
the bad guys,
Right.
yeah.
You train for a shooting. That's the pinnacle. That's the highest thing that you could be involved in is a shooting. And that's probably not true, but that's what they train you for, And I didn't have any issues with it. They made us go see a doctor. I think it was the same doctor.
Oh my God.
What?
You know what? It was the same doctor. So they sent us to that dumb doctor to get a
Dr. Idiot.
pre-shooting
Dr.
eval.
Idiot.
And she was the same. She was the exact same.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Yeah, whatever. Are you okay? Yeah, whatever. I said whatever I need to say to get back on the street.
Yeah. Different call.
Yeah. So, and I remember talking to the guys on scene, not on scene, but the guys that were there with me. I was like, "What'd you think of that psychologist?" "Oh, she's an idiot. She talked to me like a little kid." And,
Yeah.
and it was the same old, same old. So we're like, whatever. And I went on with my business. And it didn't bother me.
Oh, I'd like to thank Dr. Robbie right now because she was the doctor that I saw right offhand.
No,
Thank you.
I had to see at least 6
Thank you,
before I
Doc,
got to Doc
for
Raleigh.
being the right doctor.
So what happens after this critical incident?
Nothing. I
So
went
you're
back to work and I
you're
was good to
good.
go. Yeah.
Okay.
It's no big deal. So I'm just doing my job. And about 2 weeks later, I was sitting in a fire station doing paperwork, and a hot tone sounded. And it wasn't my hot tone. It didn't have anything to do with me, but it sent me into like a panic. I started hyperventilating, and I was shaking, and I didn't know what was happening to me. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I started doing tactical breathing like they teach us, and I was trying to calm myself down and listen to the call. And I'm like, this is no big deal. What's going on, you know? And I sat there in that fire station for like 10 minutes, and it wouldn't let up. And it was the type of panic. The best way I can describe it was, like, you ever seen a kid who doesn't know how to swim kind of
Just flailing.
venture into the deep end and then realize,
oh shit,
crap.
Yeah.
So that's what I felt like. I felt like a little kid who didn't know how to swim, who's gasping for breath as they're going underwater and thrashing around. Like, that's the type of panic I felt inside. And I was like, what is going on? And I had no idea. And so for 10 minutes, I sat there and tried to control it and figure it out like we do when we go to a hot call. You deal with it, and nothing worked. And so I drove into the police department, and I said, I need to talk to a supervisor. And I explained my situation. I said, I have no idea what's going on with me, but I need to go talk to someone.
Preferably not Dr. Idiot.
I didn't care. I mean, I never ever felt anything like this in my life. And I was like, I don't know who or what. I just need to talk to someone. And they're like, okay, well, finish your report and dress down and go home. And that's what I did. So I went home, and that was it. And I went home and I actually wrote down on a piece of paper exactly what happened to me. And I wrote, you know, the same description about a little kid flailing around in the deep end, just not knowing how to swim. And I thought to myself, I don't know what this is, but I don't ever want to feel it again. And that feeling has really never ever gone away.
Yeah.
So I took time off and I went to go get help. And any ideas who they sent me to?
Don't tell me it was Dr. Idiot again.
Was it Dr. Idiot again?
You're 0 for 3 at this point.
my
This is your third time
gosh.
seeing this broad.
Yeah, but I didn't care. Like, I was in a totally different mindset than I've ever been in my life. And I was like, I'll go see her. I'll go see anyone. I don't know what's happening to me. And so they sent me to her, and I went and I started explaining to her exactly what was happening. And it was the same thing, you know, just don't think that way.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Idiot. Can you realize you've seen the same person 3 times now, and you're fucking...
And you're still trying. You're getting the same result. You're fucking
Brian.
insane.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I'm having all these issues. And I started explaining because my blackouts started getting even worse. So I was really like, it was happening very often where I was blacking out and then waking up somewhere else and not knowing how I got there or whatever. And I started explaining that kind of stuff. And she's like, you know, there's no psychological, this is exactly what she said to me. There's no psychological explanation for the memory loss you're reporting. That's exactly what she told me.
Wow.
And I'm like, so what's happening? What is this? If, you know.
You have something new.
So
you're just weird.
To me, she just called me a liar. She just said, what you're telling me is not true because there's no explanation for that. So here I have this doctor who's supposed to help me, who's telling me just don't think that way, telling me that she doesn't believe what I'm telling her as far as the memory loss and waking up in different places. Later, through good doctors, I found out that that's called dissociation. And that's your body going to autopilot. Excuse me.
Wow.
What a mess.
And
Dr. Idiot.
And so
She
what?
needs a punch to the crotch.
so here's the deal.
Take care of that, T. We'll put that on your list.
I'm on it.
The department said, well, we're going to give you 6 visits with her.
Dear God.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll do whatever it takes.
Again with okay.
Well,
How
'cause
much
we're
of a rule follower can you be if it's not working?
I didn't know any different.
I understand why.
I just wanted to not
understand why,
feel.
but man.
I just wanted to not feel how I was feeling. I didn't care. You know, maybe it worked later on down the road. Maybe I wasn't giving her a fair shake, but I was willing to do it. I was in crisis, you know. I didn't know what was happening to me, so I'm like, okay, I'll show up to 6 of them. Well, about the third one, I said, hey, because I was explaining some of the symptoms on my it was actually my third visit. I was driving to her office to get treatment, and I lost track of where I was. I was driving down the freeway, and I just didn't know where I was.
Been there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
That
had
happened to me
pull
the
over
other day.
on the side of the freeway because I was so triggered from who knows what, probably the traffic and being overwhelmed by feelings and then dissociating and then having flashbacks and things just coming all at the same time. My body just shut down. So here I am sitting on the side of the freeway. I had no idea where I was.
I was on my way to work when that happened to me. Didn't know how to get to work, and I was like, I'm fucking supposed to be going to work. I don't know where the fuck.
What's
I am.
work?
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah, and I was halfway there. So I was like,
Holy
I got
shit.
this far. How come I don't know where I'm at? And how come I don't know where I'm going? So I'm sitting on the side of the road and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be going to my doctor, but I don't know where I am or where she's at. So I had to get on my phone and GPS how to get to her office and just listen to my phone and get there. And so I finally make it to her office and I'm a wreck. Like I just can't concentrate at this point. And I just sit in her office with my head in my hands and I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I'm at. I just don't understand what's happening to me. And she sat there and looked at me like, it's going to be okay. Just don't think about it.
Oh my God.
Oi,
Jeez.
Yeah.
Brian.
Did you make all 6 sessions after that? Did you make all the way through?
So she's violated my trust twice already, right? So she tells me there's no psychological explanation for
Right.
what you're thinking. Everything's going to be okay, even though you don't know where you are or what's going on. And the third time she violated my trust is I said, hey, I'm having these things. I just lost track of where I was. Am I supposed to be going back to work like this? You know, because I was afraid that's going to happen to me on duty.
Yeah.
And she says to me, my job is not to tell you whether you can work or not. My job is to treat you.
Oh my gosh.
That's the same goddamn book of lie shit she told me. Same shit. What year was that?
2014.
Yeah, about the same time I was fucking seeing her too.
Is this person still seeing police officers? You guys
Yes.
know this, right?
Yes.
She's
Oh.
actually contracted through one of the larger
Oh my
agencies.
god. Okay. Now that you're better and realize that how dumb she was, this is your chance to tell her what you'd like to tell her. Just
No, it's not productive.
you.
We're not going.
Chicken
It's
shit.
useless energy.
Yeah.
Chicken shit.
No, we're trying to be positive here.
So anyway, what she told me, whether that's what she meant or not, is that I don't work for you, I work for them, which is true, but I need help.
Yeah.
And if you're not worried about my best interests, how am I going to get better? If you can't tell me don't go to work, don't get in a cop car, how can I trust you?
Wow.
How can I trust you to make me better if you're not willing to give me advice on how to get better? You're just worried about checking the box that I showed up so that you can get paid.
So that she can get paid.
So
That's
she can
exactly
tell
what I was
people
gonna
she
say.
helps police.
So
Oh, man.
that's the third visit. She tells me that. And so I'm like, that's 3 strikes. This lady's a freaking moron.
Hey, that's
And
not
so
productive.
Positive vibes only, please, Brian.
Yeah. So I've had it. I am in crisis. I have no idea what's happening to me. I don't know why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm blacking out, and this person who's supposed to be helping me is not helping me. So I tell the doctors, hey, this is not working out. And they're like, you have to see her 6 times before we can file workers' comp on you.
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
so I'm like, so I have to go see her before you'll file workers' compensation? And they're like, yes. So I had to go
wow.
2 more visits with her before they would even file a workers' comp claim for me so that I could see a different doctor.
Jesus.
Yeah, so the last 2 visits were really unproductive because I didn't have any faith in her or trust that she cared for me. She didn't care about my mental health.
She doesn't. She doesn't care at all.
So,
Because you and I are not the only 2 that she's seen that we've heard is
well, since
the same.
I've been involved in peer support, everyone who's brought up her name has nothing nice to say about it. And that's unfortunate because there are several
Because
agencies
that's who they're sending us to.
that are sending us to see her.
Oh God. Shame on you.
So what? I'm guessing at this point, did you get a diagnosis of PTSD at this point, or are you
Not
still?
from her.
That wasn't her job.
So yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't
she's
So at
just
this
there.
point, I have no idea what's happening to me. I don't know what PTSD is. I know that I'm having all these symptoms of PTSD, but I don't know what that is.
Right.
I don't know what I'm feeling. I can't put a finger on what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it. I have no idea. So I complete all my visits with this lady and I tell them, hey, let's file workers' compensation because I need to get help. And they said, okay, no problem. So we fill out all the paperwork. Well, they filled it out because I couldn't go to the police department. If I even get close to it, I'd have like paralyzing anxiety where my limbs just wouldn't work. And so they filled it out for me. Well, I get a call 2 days later from one of my peers. No, I got a call from workers' comp. They called me and wanted to do an interview about what had happened. And so the lady calls me and she's like, hey, so can you explain what happened? And so I walk her through this whole shooting and how it happened and my involvement and some of the things that was happening to me now. And she was like, all I have down here is that you got a blood exposure. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, has anything like this ever happened to you before? And I'm like, well, yeah. And so I started naming off the mass suicide or the murder-suicide and some of the other critical incidents I've been involved in. And she's like, I'll call you back. And so I'm like, that's kind of weird. So the next day I get a phone call from one of my peers and he says, hey, work comp's about to deny your claim.
How the fuck does your peer know that? That's what I want to know. How does your peer know that's going to happen?
Well, because he was lead officer and my sergeant was out. And so he was tasked.
So they notified him in the assumption that he was the sergeant.
Yes.
Okay.
So he was the lead officer, this acting sergeant while the sergeant was out. And he, in fact, was the guy who I'd been
Confided in?
Yeah, with the murder-suicide. So he knew my situation and we were good enough friends that I didn't have to explain much to him.
Right.
You know? And so I explained what had happened and he explained to me that it was originally submitted as a blood exposure. So work comp denied that claim and they started a new claim which was for my involvement in the shooting. And work comp is not quick.
No.
They don't care about
Nope.
It's an
you or
understatement.
your well-being or anything like that. So 2 weeks goes by, nothing. 3 weeks, 4, 5. It's been like a month and a half and I still have I'm not getting any treatment. I'm not at work because I'm having all these symptoms that are not safe for me to go on the street.
Right.
And my commander calls me and he's like, hey, just checking in with you. Want to see how you're doing. And I'm like, I'm not doing good. I have no idea what's happening to me. And he's like, well, I wanted to know when you're coming back to the street. Like,
Minimum staffing. We're hurting.
Yeah. So he's asking me to come back to the street. I didn't explain my situation to him.
Right.
And I didn't know if he knew, but I didn't know that I had PTSD. I didn't know if I didn't have a diagnosis. I didn't know what was happening to me really. And so he's like, well, I just want to know when you're coming back to the street. And I'm like, I have no idea what's happening to me. And I'm not getting into a patrol car until I understand what's happening to me. And he's like, so you have no idea. And I'm like,
No.
What?
yeah. And so he's like, cause we kind of need to know. And I'm like, well, I can't give you that answer because I'm not in any shape to get into a police car. And he's like, okay. I said, hey, before you go, I want to let you know, I am not getting treatment right now. I need treatment. I need to get help with whatever's happening with me. So is there any way you can make that happen? And he's like, I'll have to check with workers' comp and see what's happening.
Oh my God.
And that was it. So I pleaded with him. I need help. Something's seriously wrong with me, and I need help. And he didn't have an answer for me.
What a fucking mess.
So I knew another officer who was seeing a different doctor. And I talked to him and I said, "Hey man, do you go to a psychologist, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you like her?" "Yeah, I really like her." "Do you trust her?" And he said, "I trust her with my life." I said, "Can I get her phone number?"
So you had to take it upon yourself to get
Yeah.
a doctor.
So
No
at this-
roadmap.
Yep.
I'm telling you,
So
there's
at
no
this point,
roadmap.
I will do anything, and I'm burning through my own sick time
Mm-hmm.
because workers' comp's not going to help me.
Right.
The department, I haven't heard from them. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it on my own because I can't keep doing this. I was sitting on my couch with the blinds closed, scared out of my mind that someone is about to break into my,
Yeah.
that someone's going to break into
Hypervigilance.
my house. And all these crazy scenarios were in my head that weren't true. Like I went I went to Walgreens with my wife, and I was so mentally disturbed that I told her I was going to wait in the car. I'm like, I don't want to go in with all those people because noises were overwhelming for me.
Yep.
Like I could hear everything people were saying,
Yep.
every conversation. If I went to a movie, I could hear every person in that theater chewing their popcorn. It was overwhelming. So I told her, I'm going to sit in the car. And the whole time she was gone, she went in to get a pack of gum. The whole time she was gone, my brain was telling me that the next person coming out of that door was a bank robber or was robbing the place. And over that loop played in my head. Hey, the next person coming out of that door is robbing the place, and you're gonna be confronted with them, and you're gonna have to make a decision. And this scenario that didn't exist was just rolling in my head over and over and over, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't sit here and not get help because I'm just spiraling. I'm even worse than I was 3 weeks ago.
You're just getting worse and worse as time goes on.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to be normal. I'm still trying to be a dad. Meanwhile, I can't be around people. The noise, the crowds, just everything just makes me want to jump out of my skin. And once again, I don't know why. I have no clue. Another thing that happened to me that really scared the hell out of me was I was at Chuck E. Cheese with my kids. And I didn't want to be there, but I was going to be a dad, you know. I was going to push the feelings down that I had, and I was going to be a dad, and I was just going to go. And so I went there, and while I was there, I saw this guy reach for like his waistband area. I don't know if he was getting a phone or what he was doing, but my brain told me he's pulling a gun on me. And in that moment, I thought that man was pulling a gun on me in Chuck E. Cheese. And if I would have had a gun on me, I would have killed him.
Probably, yeah.
That's the state of mind I was in.
Yeah.
I was ready to kill this guy for touching his waistband in Chuck E. Cheese. And after that incident, I didn't carry a gun again.
Yeah.
I didn't, because the thoughts I was having weren't rational thoughts. I wasn't thinking clearly. And I thought to myself, how am I going to get in a patrol car if my brain's playing tricks on me like that?
Yeah, that's not safe.
If I'm on a traffic stop,
nope,
and I ask them for their license and I perceive a gun that's not there,
yeah, that's
can't
bad.
do that.
Yep.
So I went and I got help. I said, I'm going to go to someone I know trusts, and I'm going to get help. And I started getting my own treatment, paying for it myself. And that was the first time that I actually met a competent psychologist that knew what was going on.
Can we name a competent psychologist?
Sure. What's a competent psychologist's name?
Well, at the time it was Amy Paul. That was the first one I saw, Dr. Amy Paul. And then I saw Dr. Esther Ruiz, and she's who I see now. But that was the first time that a doctor could actually tell me what was happening to me and explain that these emotions and things that were happening to me were part of post-traumatic stress. And And so I felt a relief that someone could finally tell me what was going on with me and why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And someone who had my best interest in mind.
Right.
And not someone else's. And that was like a relief for me to be able to know that someone understood me and they were going to give me the roadmap to try and get out of it.
Yeah. So, there's a little bit more to your story, and we'll do that on a second podcast because you said there were multiple officers on the scene with you.
On the bank shooting?
On the mass suicide or
the murder-suicide.
Murder-suicide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what we're hoping to do is we'll have one of those officers in here with us, and we'll talk about a little bit what happened with
somebody else's view
of it and how you guys just never talked about it. Mm-hmm. But real quick before we wrap up, well, we'll save it for the next podcast because it might get kind of lengthy. But I appreciate you sharing. I know it was kind of rough. I could see a little bit there that you were getting a little twisted. But the funny thing is that he said something that was kind of interesting that Mark had said in his previous podcast as well, which was, you remember Mark talks about he was so angry he had that face,
Yeah, the face that's on his book. Yeah.
And then he gets shot and he's like, oh shit,
sad.
I just made And then Brian said the same thing. He saw both ends of those spectrums.
Yeah.
He saw his highest high and he saw his lowest low.
Yeah.
And I think people need to understand that, especially civilians, because we see them in a light that's not necessarily, doesn't portray them the best. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's adrenaline. And then we see that last moment where the mistake's been made and there's no coming back from that.
Right.
He's gone. Even just that piece right there is enough to fuck somebody up. I think so. I think so. I think if that was a civilian, who's not going to be fucked up? But, we all know it doesn't just it's not just you see a tragic or traumatic event and then you have PTSD. I mean, there's acute stress. All of this that the three of us have encountered, just us three, for instance, was completely survivable. It was completely healable.
Right.
But because we deal with fucking Dr. Idiot over here and we're rule followers and we keep doing the same thing thinking the outcome's going to be different, I think really causes a detriment to our own mental health. Because
that's another thing I wanted to talk about is I could still have my job by now if I would have gotten the treatment immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And gotten good treatment right off.
The correct treatment.
Yeah. Because I think what I had at first was acute stress.
Right.
Which is something that goes away. But because I did not get treatment for a month and a half or longer, it turned into extreme or compound or whatever type of PTSD it is, and I ultimately lost my career over it, and that's unfortunate because I loved my job.
Yeah.
And I worked hard at my job.
We always say that.
Yeah.
There isn't anyone in here that
I'd go
said, fucking yeah.
I wouldn't have traded that. And my doctors were the same. I saw from start to finish, I saw almost 13 doctors, I think. Every one of them in their evaluation said, had he gotten treatment from the get-go, he'd still be on the road. Mm-hmm. And that's a kick in the balls right there, is because it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary for us to have to retire. We didn't want to retire, but because we deal with these doctors here that just stop it.
Yeah.
Just
don't think about it.
Just stop it.
Oh, I wish.
But we can't.
Great.
So we can't. So, like I said, I appreciate you sharing your story. We do plan on having one of the officers that was with you on that scene, which is a whole different kind of fucked up when you think about, you guys continued to work and both of you are fucked up and you don't say anything. So, and then at the, and then ultimately,
don't give it all away.
Yeah. I won't give it all away. But then we get to, how you came to Pistol and going to West Coast and stuff and the help you need. So are you in a good spot to wrap it up? I know you had asked T before. You're like, you might have to cover me because you're going to be a little bit messed up. But I think you did all right.
Yeah.
You did pretty good.
I don't know. Let me check and see if there's anything I know.
Except for
to talk about.
Except for the tremors that he had there for a
Brian.
short minute.
Yeah.
Brian took notes. He had to take.
So I wrote
some
things down that I wanted to talk about. With
I think you hit them all. I don't think you missed any.
because he can't remember shit.
Yeah. Let's see.
CRS.
CRS is that's. I wonder if that's in the DSM-5. CRS.
Probably not.
Yeah, I think
It's old age.
I think I hit pretty much everything I wanted to talk about, but it shouldn't have. I shouldn't have lost my career over it. I shouldn't have. I should have been able to get treatment early, and still be on the road. And that's where I wish it would have happened that way.
Yeah.
But now I take the opportunity to help other people not get that far down the road.
Yeah.
We're doing peer sport with Pistol and helping others not fall into that trap of not getting treatment or not understanding what's happening and pigeonholing acute stress. That's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that through Pistol, if we can educate people on how to help themselves and how to head off those feelings before they turn into something damaging, that's what we need to do. So that's why I'm involved, and that's why I work so hard at doing this, is because I don't want anyone to ever have to go through what I went through.
Yeah. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
All right.
What else you got, T? Anything else?
Pistol.org.
I love it.
I don't got anything else. Oh, and if you listen to go YouTube and listen to this bull crap of us sitting around, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up if you
subscribe
like it.
and hit the bell. So for the next
Subscribe.
every podcast every week.
Yeah, and if you could leave a comment.
Yeah, comment definitely, because we need to know what else you guys want to hear about. We're pretty much an open book. I think everybody in the room is an open book. So
by doing those things, it helps us know that you guys care and that you want to see more of this.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys on the next one, right?
Later.
Next week.
Peace.
Oh.
I guess the P.
You did good.
I thought you did pretty good.
You only got a little bit shaky.
I was worried
Yeah,
about
at the
you.
beginning I was
Way
shaking like
worse
crazy.
than that.